Hey everyone, this is Thibaut again for the episode number 4 already of the Voices of Support podcast. And this time I'm joined by Jared on the other side of the ocean. So also super nice to meet people all over the world. Jared is bringing a lot of really high level kind of support experience. He will tell us about working remotely, on site, doing firefighting with some of the customers, sometimes things that are complex, sometimes that are more easy to handle. Also, I think you mentioned in your message before the podcast the cross-cultural aspect and collaboration and things like this. So I think those are super interesting. We'll see where we go. But before jumping into all of this, I think it would be nice for everyone listening or watching to get to know you and know a little bit who you are and how you started in support technically.
Sure. I've been working in the enterprise software industry, I guess if you can call that an industry, because that is in every industry, right, for about 30 years. The last 10 years have been in warehouse automation. What I mean by that is if you imagine, you order something online and that order maybe has three or four things and they all come from some big warehouse and there is some type of automation, sometimes some type of human interaction that needs to take those individual units from the boxes where they came from the factory, take them off the shelves, assemble them into some type of an order, and then put your mailing address on it and ship it to you. And to be able to do that very efficiently is the reason why we have the prices that we do. The more expensive it is to process all of that, the more expensive our orders get for us. So that's been the last 10 years. Right now I work for a company based in Austria. I work for the North American unit. It's called TGW, Warehouse Automation and Equipment Manufacturer as well. But the majority of my history has been in technical support and systems administration. Uh, and the way that I fell into that was just um, it was the job that I started with right out of college. I realized in university that it wasn't as natural for me to write code as it was for some of my classmates.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really liked to do, I could write the code, but what I really liked to do instead of uh, developing was to pick apart the pieces of a system and see how they all fit together, and then see how a problem over here can cascade through several systems and make another problem over here. So that lent itself well to technical support. Um, and that's a little bit about my background and what I do.
Nice. It triggers right away something in my mind because I'm especially interested by everything related to training and learning and how we develop the skills of the agents and so on. But when I saw your background and what you are doing right away, I was telling myself, okay, it's another level of complexity when it comes to how do you onboard those kind of agents? How do we evaluate if they have the right skills, if they have the right knowledge? How do you basically upskill them and so on? So, can you tell us maybe a bit more about what you have seen working, what you have seen, the difficult challenges that you have seen
Of
from
course,
your years of experience?
of course. Well, in my first role, it was very self-driven. The My first role, I needed to have a network certification before I was allowed to talk to customers. And so I spent the first few weeks really doing nothing but studying. And boy, if I thought that college was a lot of studying, um, studying the same topic for 8 to 10 hours a day by yourself is rough. And so that wasn't the most efficient. Also, what that didn't tell me is it didn't tell me what the business priorities were. So I learned the technical material, but I didn't really know what the business needed me to do with that, other than just kind of generically solve whatever problems the customer brings to us. Because I didn't get that company onboarding really, I spent the first several months working really hard and not knowing that I wasn't doing what my boss wanted me to do because my boss never told me that. And I got to the end of the year, and my boss said that I was ranked almost the very last one on a team. And I was shocked because I'd worked very hard and I'd become unofficially, I'd become a mentor for the team. I'd written dozens and dozens of knowledge-based articles, and to hear that I was ranked almost dead last on the team was really terrible. And but that's when she told me how I was actually being measured, and that made a huge difference. So to contrast that, in my last role, I was leading a team of technical support engineers, and the way that I'm not claiming credit for that. The onboarding for this team was refined through collaboration with the team. No one has a monopoly on good ideas. And if any support leader or customer service leader thinks that they have all the best ideas in the team, they're wrong, and they're losing opportunities to get valuable impact from the people that are in the trenches every day. The way that my last team did onboarding, or I should say my previous team did onboarding, before the person started, all their equipment was set up, their account was live and ready to go, and they had peer troubleshooting sessions and mentoring sessions scheduled at least 2 or 3 every day with different members of the team. One with me, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, but every day, 2 to 3 times a day for 2 to 3 to 4 hours each to troubleshoot and work on their job with team members. They had a spreadsheet with each skill listed that they needed to learn and resources for that skill, so they could go down and just kind of check off in that sheet with a rough schedule. And they were told, look, everyone starts not knowing what you need to know to be successful. Everyone has been where you are. You may have known everything about where you came from, but you don't know what we do. But you have the skills to learn what we do. We hired you because you're going to be really good at this. And this is how you get good at this, and let's work on that together. And so we went from, in that team, having a technical onboarding of about 3 months to about 3 weeks before people can take tickets on their own. And I credit an amazing team for that.
Yeah, which is impressive because I think the complexity is really, really high. But how do you think, like, because of course AI is everywhere, but do you feel like there are even more ways to use AI in those kind of settings to even help on those onboarding sessions? Because in the end, you still have the other members from the team that are maybe there for a long time that needs to put in the hours to help the newcomers, so which is good, I think, in some cases, of course. But it can also impact their productivity and their efficiency overall on other projects. So how do you foresee that going, or what are you looking for when it comes to AI right now when you look at it?
I think that the first thing is onboarding in every way is an investment by the company with the hope of a future payoff on that investment. And so, yes, onboarding new employees, new team members, whether they're new to the company or transferring from another team, the existing team and the leadership needs to invest some time and effort, but you can't afford to get frustrated about that effort because it is an investment in the future. And if you're not willing to invest, then you're reducing the success of that team member and the speed at which they can onboard. As far as AI is concerned, it depends on the investment that you're willing to put into the body of knowledge that the AI can draw from. And there's a risk there that every company has proprietary information that they don't want to share with their competitors, even if that's very small. At some companies, that's very large. And on a technical support team, where the troubleshooting that you do may be almost entirely proprietary information, you need to be very sure about the company's willingness to risk that proprietary information in the hands of a large language model or a small language model that the company itself does not control. So either you need to develop the expertise to run and manage your own in-house model so that there's no leakage, or you need to trust that some company that has been in business for only a few years, that has all kinds of different financial models, that they are going to do a good job being good stewards of your confidential data. And that the risk of that leakage is, again, the business case. Is that worth the potential payoff? And so the last company that my previous role, we only used AI to help us make our ticket responses more professional. We used it to look at our own knowledge base, but we didn't use it to look at our code or to do very much of the onboarding, in part because the technical troubleshooting that we did almost never could resolve a case by looking at the documentation. Almost every time we had to remotely connect into a customer system and do debugging by looking directly at the system logs, at the database, at those types of things. So AI for troubleshooting just wasn't a good fit for us.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think it's a good transition to my next question, because when I think about the type of customer you have, enterprise, I'm telling myself, okay, expectations are really high because of the cost involved also for those type of solutions and everything. And I think you shared also some examples where you even had to not only connect remotely to try to troubleshoot things, but even go on sites. So, I mean, do you have one story or one thing like where you had to go as far as that teach, where you learn a lot from this experience? Because it sounds like that's not the typical kind of support that you have to do usually in customer support.
No, going on site to visit a customer, of course, is a lot more expensive than troubleshooting over the phone or having a customer solve their issue through self-service. So it's kind of a last resort. You know, when the business need is so high and the problem is so complicated. Before I launch into that, I was thinking about kind of our discussion leading up to this conversation. Every customer has the belief that what they're doing is the right thing. We in support, we don't run their business. We don't use the product. Even though we may know our product very well, we don't know how it's behaving in their environment nearly as well as they do. So sometimes we have a tendency to feel like we're the experts and they're the people that don't know anything, when as often as not, it's the other way around. And so customers, I think, end users feel like they're doing the right thing all the time. And the reason they reached out to support is not to tell us how great everything is, but they're frustrated and they need some help. And so in some ways we need to be a therapist and a relationship coach as much as we need to do technical support. And you have to change that to some degree with every customer, because everyone has different personalities. There was one of the types of problems that I work on are for networked applications where the network communication has to be perfect, or else you have very weird technical problems. We assume for most of our applications that the network is going to be solid. The network is going to be perfect. Most of our applications for years have used TCP, Transport Control Protocol, to ensure reliability and 100% delivery of data. But TCP has a big problem in that if there are any communication problems at all, then TCP applications get very, very slow as they try to do error correction. So in one particular case, there was a bank in Liechtenstein. I was working in California at the time, and there's a bank in Liechtenstein that was having communication problems. They didn't know at first they were communication problems. They just saw um, really, really bad application performance. And so we looked at a bunch of symptoms and said, look, this sounds like classic packet loss. Not all of the data is being successfully communicated over the network, but that packet loss can happen at any transfer point. If you think of the network between you and your public library, there's there's your home router, there's your internet service provider's router, the next router, the next router, the next router, a bunch of firewalls in between, and so on until you get to the library's services. Any one of those can potentially have communication issues with their network peer. And so without getting too much deeper into the gory details, if two of those network interfaces have auto-negotiated a slightly different set of rules, one will be transmitting in a way that the other one is not expecting to receive, and those data packets will just get lost. So that's what I suspected was happening. I mentioned that to the customer, and they said, well, we don't think that's happening. We've checked and checked and checked and checked. So I said, okay, well, the only way to tell for sure is to take network packet captures. If you've used Wireshark, that's the type of capture I'm talking about. They said, well, we can't do that because we're a bank, and for security reasons, we can take the capture and we can look at it, but you can't look at it because you're outside the country, and not just that, you're outside of the bank. So if you want to look at that, you have to come be in the four walls of the bank for our security policies. So this isn't a technical restriction, it's a business restriction. So I got on a plane and traveled to Germany and drove to Liechtenstein and got there. And as soon as I got out of the car, my colleague told me, oh, the problem is resolved. They found that two of those interfaces didn't have the same rules and they fixed it. So
yeah, it was a nice trip.
I turned around and went home,
Yeah.
But the reason why that trip was still valuable to make is that it sent the signal to the customer that they were an important customer of ours, that it was worth it to us to invest the time and the resources in fixing their problem. And sometimes that signal that you send to the customer is more important than the actual technical issue itself.
Yeah, and that's why I was I was interested by your career and experience, because in the enterprise business it's completely different. You are not in this I mean, I was, for example, my past job was in a fashion marketplace, and my customer support team was really like, it's transactional. It's one ticket in, one ticket out that needs to go in the next 5 minutes, and it needs to be gone. And of course we try to do our best, but in the end the lifetime value of one customer is usually really low, and you don't have that many risks linked to it. But indeed, in your kind of industry, it's another question and another kind of a challenge to handle. So super interesting. Okay, and something also that is interesting. I mean, as you were saying, you were in San Francisco in the US. You're still working for an Austrian company and so on. Communication, like, what did you see when it comes to communication between all those different cultures? Like, what basically has been eye-opening or surprising, or what did you see that is not usual in this kind of position from your experience?
That was a nice lead into the Japanese company that I worked with. So working with each of us grow up with a set of communication expectations formed by our family, by our city, by our culture, and those are not always the same from city to city or from country to country. And as a side note, even within your own culture, I learned quickly that a troubleshooting approach doesn't work for relationships. I learned that right after I got married, that gathering information, being specific on the details and trying to troubleshoot is not the best way to resolve a marriage concern. But all the married people are now laughing at me, but that's okay. I learned my lesson. But the culture, communication culture, business communication culture in the United States and in Japan is not the same, or at least in this experience, it was not. I worked on an escalation team, and we took escalations from various countries, including our subsidiary in Japan. But because of the time difference, it would be a day or sometimes more in between emails. And this was before the time of, well, even if we'd had instant messaging available to us right then, it wouldn't have mattered because I was only awake when they were asleep. And so they would submit a question, and I would ask 3 or 4 follow-up questions. And then the answers that I would get back, I didn't feel like answered my questions. And it was frustrating to me, not because it was my customer, because I really wanted to solve the issue and I felt like it was taking forever, until a coworker of mine who had lived in Japan for several years said, "Okay, Jared, don't do it that way. Instead of just asking the open-ended questions, respond with, are you seeing symptom A when you do thing B? If you are, then do this next." So instead of having a question and then waiting for an answer, and a question and waiting for an answer, which works very well in live communications, but the combination of the distance, the time, and the culture, and I don't know Japanese culture very well, so I'm sure people are going to have different experiences. But what really, really helped was this advice from my coworker. Said, give suggested next steps here. Say, if you're seeing A, then do B. If you're seeing 1, then do 2. If you're seeing X, then do Y. Because I knew all of those things. I was just so accustomed to my way of troubleshooting and my way of thinking, I didn't even consider any other way.
Yeah.
So
Which is interesting, because I would even expect myself, like, if I get this kind of support that is in a way really proactive, because you already think about all the potential paths that can exist and how I can resolve all those things so I don't even have to ask you again, then I would be super happy basically with the experience. So that's interesting. Which makes me think, like, maybe last two questions.
Okay.
What do you think? Because it's really different than my own experience as an agent. It's much more technical and so on. How do you think the skills that are needed for this type of job and type of the knowledge that you need, what are the maybe 3 skills that you think are key and maybe different than a traditional support job based on your experience?
You're referring to what we could call deep technical support versus customer support. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
So there, for sure, it's a different set of skills. And in technical support, as you mentioned before, I like the way you put that, the lifetime value of a particular customer is higher when your customer has a support contract that's very expensive and you work with those same customers over and over. So it's very important to be willing and able to pick up the phone and talk to people, and to know that you'll be talking with that same person maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe in 3 months, and that they're going to get to know you a little bit. So you can't have a transactional view of, I'm having a bad day, it's okay to be a jerk to the next 3 customers. Because those 3 customers all have an expensive relationship with your company. They're going to bring that up in the next quarterly business review that they don't like support. From a technical perspective, it's important to enjoy picking things apart, to enjoy experimenting, to understand how things work. If you want things to just work and you don't want to tweak them at all, you don't want to customize everything, then maybe that type of technical support job is not for you.
Hmm.
And the other one is you have to be willing to, and this is an awkward combination for a lot of people, but to be willing to be both deep dive heads down on a technical issue, but to force yourself, and that can be very rewarding to solve those issues, but to force yourself to come back up regularly, to look at the queue, to talk to your peers, to see what other priorities are happening. Because just because a topic is very interesting to you, a problem is very interesting to you, does not mean that it's going to be the most important thing, the highest
Hmm.
priority 5 minutes
Yeah.
from now when a critical issue comes in. So you have to be able to deep focus on something, but you can't lose yourself for hours in that deep focus because
Yeah.
that's to the detriment of the rest of your team.
Yeah, that's interesting because it feels. I mean, it really sounds like you guys need to almost have some sense of business acumen, like understanding what makes more sense for the business, for which customers, and to prioritize according to that. And because, as I was saying, in my case, in my experience, it was more transactional. We just advance, we kill the tickets, we kill the queue, and most
Right.
likely I will never talk again to this customer. I'm trying to do my best because that's what I like and so on, but. This relationship aspect that you mentioned is interesting also because I guess that can lead also to other path in terms of development, career development, and so on. Because then you can go into other aspects, maybe even in sales, I guess, maybe because
Yes.
maybe you know so much an account, maybe you know so much of someone and so much the product that you can even go this direction at some point.
That's what I'm doing
Um,
now. Actually, I'm in sales now.
yeah. So interesting, super nice. Maybe last question because I'm gonna have to jump. What do you want? Because I think it was super interesting to have a really little glimpse of how technical support looks like. I think it would be nice to have another discussion later on, maybe to jump into other examples at some point. But what do you want, like, for people that are listening to this for the first time and maybe hear about what technical support looks like? What do you want them to take away from this discussion and maybe from your journey in this space?
Um, Something I've been thinking about the last couple of years. Um, Technical support is often underappreciated within the company, especially when the business of the company doesn't see that they rely a lot on technical support. Um, for After the sale, technical support and customer support are really the face of the company to the customers. Um, Technical support can be a very frustrating job. It can feel like the software is a big messy pile of garbage because all of your interactions are all when things go wrong, and you feel like you have to fix everything all the time, and you wouldn't have to do all this nasty work if the software would just work right in the first place. And it's very easy to become negative. Um, and you don't get the positive, oh, thank you very much, everything is wonderful. You don't get that very often. But what you do get, though, you get um, an amazing camaraderie with your peers. The potential for that. None of these things are guaranteed. Team cultures and company cultures are different, but you have the opportunity to learn a lot technically and about yourself and about customers. You have the opportunity to learn project management skills, product management skills, documentation skills, so technical writing, um, management skills. Technical support covers such a breadth of the business that you can learn practically anything you want to learn and be really good at it, um, and transition into whatever the next phase of your career is going to be. And that can be in technical support your whole career. It has been for most of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a wonderful opportunity to learn, to have to make great friends, and it's fun. But it's not for everybody. But it's fun.
Yeah,
And the right company culture, the right leadership culture in your team, it can be a blast.
yeah. No, sounds good. Okay, super interesting. Thanks, Jared, for sharing. If we want to get in touch with you, what is the easiest on LinkedIn or by email? What do you prefer now?
LinkedIn is
LinkedIn?
probably the easiest,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn. I don't connect with everyone on LinkedIn, but I do connect with almost everyone that knows people that I know,
Hmm.
or that have a compelling story. So if someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn and then the very first message is a sales pitch, then
Yeah.
usually I'm going to disconnect from them right away. But I
Which
look at
is
LinkedIn as an electronic version of a room full of people, some that I know and some that I don't. If we have
yeah,
an interesting conversation, let's connect.
cool. Perfect. Thanks, Jared, for the time. I hope we can do a second round at some point. Let's stay in touch. Super exciting, super interesting. And I think I'm gonna go to sleep a bit less uh, dumb, or that's how we say in French. But I learned something today, so thanks. Thanks for that. Thanks for the time. Thanks everyone for following. We have another episode coming really soon. And yeah, thanks, Jared. Have a good day, and I'll
A
speak to you
pleasure. Have a
soon.
good evening.
Thanks.